This is one of my favorite DC villains, and I think he's highly underrated. What's up guys, welcome back to Superhero Legacy. My name is Liam, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing one of my favorite DC villains, and that's going to be Cyborg Superman. I'm going to first review his origin story, and then I'll talk about why I love this character so much and what he means to me, so let's get into it. Hank Henshaw was a former astronaut and one of 4 crew members on board the LexCorp space shuttle called Excalibur. Hank's wife Terry and his 2 good friends Jim and Steven were among the others entrusted on the mission, but the crew was ultimately exposed to cosmic radiation resulting in the crash of their shuttle. Although all 4 of them survived, each of them began experiencing tremendous after effects. Jim and Steven sustained irreversible damage to their physical bodies but were able to recreate them in different forms. Tragically though, Jim ended up killing himself by flying into the sun, and Steven committed suicide by dismantling his own body. During this time also, Terry started presenting symptoms and found herself slowly phasing out of existence. Henshaw began working on a cure for his wife but began noticing his own side effects of the radiation, causing his body to rapidly decay. He developed a machine capable of fixing his wife but immediately died after using it. Sometime later, it was revealed that although Henshaw's physical body had expired, his consciousness was completely transformed into energy, and using his new ability to control technology, he created a robotic form for himself. His first goal was to reunite with his wife Terry, but when he appeared to her, she was greatly disturbed by his physical appearance. All the traumatic events that had transpired became too much for her to handle. Terry was driven to the point of insanity and ultimately killed herself. After her death, Henshaw created a small exploration craft and left Earth. During his travels through deep space, he became paranoid and disillusioned, believing that Superman was responsible for the deaths of his wife and his friends, and then had him exiled from Earth. Henshaw devised a plan against Superman. However, once he arrived on Earth, he found that while he was gone, Superman was killed by Doomsday, making it impossible for him to exact revenge on the man he perceived to be his enemy. So instead, he sought to destroy his reputation by claiming to be Superman reborn, and even used his cybernetic abilities to construct an identical-looking costume, all of which took place in the comic entitled Reign of the Supermen. Henshaw also joined the Sinestro Corps in exchange for his death, but unfortunately his cybernetic enhancements and his pure energy form make him virtually immortal, forcing him to endure a repeating cycle of pain and suffering, making him one of the saddest characters in the DC universe. So that's a brief history on Cyborg Superman's origin. As you probably noticed, it is tremendously dark and depressing. But now what I'm going to do is talk about why I love this character so much, and it really boils down to 3 reasons, the first being his relationship with Superman. Henshaw blames Superman for the deaths of his wife and his friends and holds him responsible for his downward spiral into the Cyborg Superman. He's a constant reminder of Clark's failure and represents the man Superman couldn't save. He was one of the millions of people who placed his trust in Superman, and he's a character who explores the concept of what happens when that trust is violated. Superman is supposed to symbolize hope, but you see, hope is dangerous because if it isn't reinforced, then it can be severely damaging to a person. For Henshaw, Superman represents false security, and he's a great perspective into misplaced faith. Furthermore, Clark has always had difficulty accepting the fact that he can't save everyone. No matter how great his superpowers are, and despite everything he can do, it is physically impossible for him to protect everyone, and this tears him apart. Cyborg Superman's mere existence challenges Superman to relive one of his greatest failures and forces him to battle this internal struggle, making him a perfect antagonist to Supes. Another reason I love Cyborg Superman is because he's a parody on Reed Richards. Henshaw's origin almost exactly mirrors that of the Fantastic Four, only a much more horrifying version of it and ending in a much more tragic way. Featuring a team of scientists exposed to harmful radiation, the story essentially puts Henshaw in the role of a later traumatized version of Reed Richards. The main difference is that every member of Henshaw's team except for himself died as a result of their mutation, and Henshaw was essentially cursed with his transformation. His consciousness was made functionally immortal, and since his adventures in space, he's desperately searched for a way to die. This is all very fascinating to me because it shows that the same events can happen to 2 different people and have very different effects. Reed's experiences made him a superhero, while Hank's experiences made him a supervillain. It shows that the differences between hero and villain are not only predicated on a person's interpretation of their past experiences, but also the magnitude of exposure and the emotional investment that is linked to them. The last reason I consider Cyborg Superman to be one of my favorite supervillains is because of the unfortunate realism that is deeply rooted in his psychological development. development. In a way, what happened to Henshaw and his transformation into Cyborg Superman wasn't his fault. He was subject to so many horrifically sad events which in turn warped his mind permanently. All the misfortune he went through was far more than he could handle and it broke him down. He became disillusioned, which made him vengeful and nihilistic. He's also a very suicidal character who's oversaturated with grief and sadness. This is a man who wants nothing more than to let death grasp his wretched life, but he literally can't die, which traps him in this sustained depression. He's forced to relive his trauma and endure his pain, which is incredibly heartbreaking because there is so much pain. His mission is now beyond revenge on Superman. He instead wants to annihilate all of existence, with him hopefully included. The events that turned Henshaw into Cyborg Superman just shows you that many times villains don't choose to be villains, but are rather molded by the result of natural occurrences which are by no fault of the victim. Cyborg Superman also shows us how much an individual's mental state can dominate their thoughts and actions. He's a character that makes you realize that mental anguish and psychological trauma can in fact be powerful enough to break a man. These things happen, and although it's unfortunate, it's the hard truth. Cyborg Superman not only shows us the psychological complexity of a villain, but also the unforgiving nature of life. He also proves that there's a very fine line between hero and villain, and it's not as black and white as many perceive it to be. If you think about it, heroes and villains are very similar in what happens to them, but it's the way in which they react to them that ultimately dictates who they are, hence why Reed became a hero. I love Cyborg Superman. He's one of my favorite villains in all of comics, and I think he's highly underrated. I know some people think he's boring, but like many other characters, if you dig deeper into him, I think there's a lot of potential there. Anyways, I hope you got something out of this video, but that's all I have for you, so peace. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Please like and subscribe for more superhero content and share your thoughts on Cyborg Superman down in the comments below. You can check out some of my other videos right over here, but for now, thank you so much for watching and stay super.